All right, so we're watching the debate here with the Mitch McConnell Retirement Committee. As they get started, we are going to listen in WKYT. We might do a few fact checks throughout the evening, but let's go ahead and turn to the debate. Can we hear?
And if you take a step back and recognize that Senator McConnell, as Senate Majority Leader, has the highest levels of national security briefings of any member of Congress. And he knew about the dangers of coronavirus way back in January. And did he tell us? Did he come back to Kentucky and say, hey, we need to prepare? Did he get the nation prepared and get our president prepared for what was to be this crisis? You know, he didn't. The first time that he said the word coronavirus wasn't until the stock market crashed. And all along, he's playing these very partisan political games, even now when Kentucky and America needs more aid. That's not what you're going to get from me. I have a plan to get us through this coronavirus so that our schools are opened up safely, so that we get our economy back and stop playing these games. To this day, Senator McConnell still doesn't have a plan, a national testing and tracing plan, and he's not going to do what's right for our country.
It's time, Senator McConnell.
Well, Bill, I want to start by congratulating Colonel McGrath for her service in the military. It's been my privilege to nominate 131 Kentucky women to have the same opportunity she did. I also was involved in making it possible for women in the military to go into different jobs, like being able to fly in combat. With regard to the question you asked, what I did was shepherd through the Senate an almost $3 trillion coronavirus relief bill, which has provided $13 billion for Kentucky, over $1 billion for hospitals and healthcare providers. And I've tried to be a good example, too. When we went back in session in the Senate in May, I was the one who said we need to wear masks, practice social distancing. Dr. Fauci's made it clear that coronavirus is not going away, and we need to practice distancing and masks until we finally get a vaccine and can put this in the rearview mirror.
Time's up, Senator. And Lieutenant Colonel McGrath, you have a rebuttal.
Sure. Well, Senator McConnell, that legislation was passed back in March. And here we are, this coronavirus is still happening. The House put up legislation in May, and it's been sitting on his desk all summer long. He took a vacation, didn't see the urgency to do anything. Meanwhile, here in Kentucky, we have 1 million Kentuckians that are filed for unemployment sometime in the last 6 months. We have 300,000 Kentuckians that still don't have health care in the middle of a coronavirus. And he's walking away from negotiations even now when President Trump even wants negotiations to happen before this election. It's irresponsible.
Senator McConnell.
Well, what she supported after the CARES Act was the so-called HEROES bill over in the House, $3 trillion, which included in it, by the way, tax cuts for rich people in New York and California, health care for illegal immigrants. And by the way, that bill that she supported that they passed in the House after the CARES Act provided more money for Puerto Rico than it did for Kentucky. In spite of her best efforts, she's a national Democrat. She is in line with Schumer and Pelosi and all the rest on all of these issues.
For Kentuckians, President Trump and Governor Andy Beshear are the two most important voices that they hear regarding COVID-19, and their messages are very often different. How would you rate their handling of the historic health crisis that we now face? Senator McConnell?
Well, I think they've both done the best they can with an unknown disease that we were all trying to figure out how to handle. Imagine the situation we had in early March when Dr. Fauci recommended we shut down the economy in order to deal with the healthcare pandemic. So we were confronted with a combination of problems, a healthcare emergency and a shutdown economy at the same time. What to do? Well, the CARES Act began in my office. We drafted it, built it out, appealed to the Democrats and the administration, and literally flooded the zone with ultimately $3 trillion to both deal with the healthcare pandemic and the economic crisis created by shutting down the government. And we learned some lessons. Dr. Fauci's indicated we're not going to shut the economy down again. I agree with him. It created a whole different set of problems. So in the meantime, what we have to do until we get a vaccine is to wear our masks, practice social distancing, and try to prevent the spread.
Senator, thank you. Lieutenant Colonel McGrath.
Well, I give the president, the White House, and this Congress an F for its handling of coronavirus. Look, we have 213,000 Americans dead in 9 months. That's more Americans dead than World War II, Korea, Vietnam, Persian Gulf War, Iraq and Afghanistan wars combined. And Senator McConnell thinks we've done a good job. We have 5% of the world's population, 25% of the world's COVID cases. And we still have a president in mixed messages from this White House on how to handle this virus. And Senator McConnell, his one job is to help America through this crisis right now in passing legislation to keep our economy afloat so that people can make ends meet. And instead of doing that, he is trying to ram through a Supreme Court nominee right now, instead of negotiating, which is what he should have been doing all summer long to make that happen.
Senator, do you have an additional response?
Well, what you wanted us to pass was the bill that provided health care for illegals, tax cuts for rich people in New York and California, and had more money in it for Puerto Rico than for Kentucky. Yeah, we've been negotiating, trying to put something reasonable together that actually attacks the problem. I laid out a bill in the Senate about a month ago that provided liability protection so that people didn't get sued as a result of how they handle this. Kids in school, jobs, health care. We couldn't get a single Democrat to vote for it. So it's pretty clear to me that her party doesn't want to get a solution.
Senator Time, Lieutenant Colonel McGrath.
Can I respond to that?
Yes, please.
Yeah. So Senator McConnell 3 years ago had no problems ramming through, working overtime to pass a $2 trillion tax cut for the wealthiest 1% in corporations. But now when it comes to Kentucky families, when it comes to putting food on the table, when it comes to renters, that 40% of Kentucky renters are facing eviction right now, he won't pass the $2 trillion that even President Trump wants done right now. I mean, $2 trillion for corporations, no problem. $2 trillion for Kentucky in the middle of a pandemic, in the middle of a national crisis that we haven't seen in 100 years, nah, that's too hard.
All right, let's really get in it, because you've both made glancing references to the economic activity and the problem that we have right now, and the trouble with getting a deal. And the pandemic has had a devastating impact on our economy, and we're all well aware of that. A $600 federal boost to unemployment benefits ended. A loan forgiveness program for small businesses expired. Airlines have started mass layoffs as federal payroll assistance programs have ended as well. So this question, which comes from a University of Kentucky student, and we're privileged to have their perspective tonight, where do you stand on negotiations on a second stimulus bill? And we begin with Lieutenant Colonel McGrath.
Well, as I said before, I think it's an absolute dereliction of duty to not be negotiating and working on this. You know, this is the first time in a century, in 100 years, where we have a major international crisis where no one in the world is looking to the United States for leadership. Think about that. It's because we have such poor leaders right now. We can't get this coronavirus under control. And the one thing that our Senate is supposed to do is to help people right now. And here's the problem. Senator McConnell built a Senate that is so dysfunctional and so partisan that even in the middle of a national crisis, you can't get it done. Think about that. For that reason alone, he should be voted out of office. We've got to get our democracy back again. We've got to get our democracy working, because we have to get through this crisis right now.
That's your time. Senator McConnell.
Well, my opponent is entitled to her opinion, but not to her own set of facts. I mean, here's the situation. We've been in negotiation with the Speaker. She's been demanding we throw $3 trillion at this problem in a way that is largely, in many respects, unrelated to solving the problem. What we've been trying to do is to reach an agreement. When you have divided government, you actually have to reach an agreement. And the Speaker has been totally unreasonable and not interested in getting an outcome, as we've tried and tried and tried. As I just said a few minutes ago, I put a bill on the floor of $500 billion, a lot of money, about a month ago, to tackle this problem in a highly targeted way, going after vaccines, treatment, testing, and we couldn't get a single Democrat to vote for it. I think they don't want a solution prior to the election.
Lieutenant Colonel McGrath, 30 seconds.
All I would just say is all summer long, Senator McConnell didn't see the urgency of doing anything and even negotiating. And here's the thing. He sits here and he says it's too hard. It's too hard to negotiate, too hard to get it done. It's basically saying, you know, that's too hard for him. That's not hard to do what's right for America. It's not hard. I'll tell you what's hard. Strap on a $70 million jet to your back, land it on an aircraft carrier at 150 miles an hour at night in bad weather with no navigational aids. That's hard. Doing what's right for the American public in the middle of a national crisis, not hard.
Senator McConnell, do you have an additional response?
When you have divided government, there has to be a willingness on both sides to get an agreement. And the Speaker of the House has clearly not been interested in getting an outcome. That's why the talks have gone on for a while. She just chooses to blame the Republican Senate when obviously the biggest part of the problem has been the Democratic House. If I'm a viewer watching this debate, I'm saying, why can't you guys get together?
Okay, so just a very quick point. So Senator McConnell was talking earlier about that you know, it was $500 billion. That's a lot, you know. So it does seem a lot, but when you put it in context, it's so much less than the United States needs. And he wants to throw in all this stuff like liability protection for businesses, you know, so that they can't get sued if their employees get COVID-19 because they had shoddy practices in the workplace. So it's a bad deal all around. So anyway, badness. Go.
Those of us that served in the Marines, we don't just point fingers at the other side. We get the job done.
Yeah, nobody went on vacation, except the House was gone most of the time, but nobody went on vacation. We actually can do things like use telephones. We communicate with each other a lot. The challenge here was the Speaker was simply unwilling to cooperate to the extent that we could get a reasonable proposal. The Secretary of the Treasury, who was delegated by the President to talk to her, went on and on and on for months. And I think we've belabored this point pretty thoroughly, Bill. It seems to me she thinks we're the problem. I think they're the problem. What we need is a solution.
Well,
the way you get a solution is the way, well,
I was going to say, we know we have a problem, and it is continuing.
A lot of excuses.
And so is the pandemic continuing. In fact, it appears we have an escalation in many of our states. And as the pandemic continues and winter and flu season are approaching, what is the appropriate balance between keeping the economy open, students in school, if they can be, and protecting the health of Americans? Senator McConnell?
Well, the single biggest thing is this is not going to be put in the rearview mirror until we get a vaccine. For those of you who are familiar with World War II history, we had the Manhattan Project to try to get the atom bomb as quickly as we could to avoid having to invade Japan. We have a Manhattan Project underway to get a vaccine. Some of our major pharmaceutical companies are already producing doses even before the clinical trials are proved out. We're going to get a vaccine in the most rapid period of time that this has ever been done without cutting any corners. And the honest answer, Bill, is until we get a vaccine, we can't entirely put this behind us. We've got a resurgence here in Kentucky, a resurgence around the country. The vaccine is not going to, the coronavirus is not going to go away until we can kill it. And it's going to take the vaccine to do that. Lieutenant
Colonel McGrath.
Well, certainly the coronavirus is not going to go away until we get a vaccine, but we still have the worst trajectory of first world countries when it comes to the coronavirus. And there are other countries that have been able to get this under control, and they've done it with a national testing and tracing plan that we still don't have in this country. This virus was so bungled at the federal level that we literally had states and communities fighting each other for personal protective equipment. There's like no leadership at all. So what do we need? What do we need? We need immediate aid right now that unfortunately Senator McConnell doesn't want to work on. But we need unemployment insurance from those people, an extension of that for those people who have been thrown off their work from no fault of their own. We need things like another round of PPP money for small businesses right now. We need a testing and tracing plan. I can't believe 9 months into this thing, I'm still saying that. And frankly, we need leadership at the very top to talk to us, to tell us the truth about this virus and how deadly it is.
Time on that. Senator, anything to add to that
look,
discussion?
I know how to make deals. I made 3 major deals with Joe Biden during the Obama era. What the problem here has been an unwillingness by the speaker to make a deal. We can spend the whole debate on this if we want to, but she wants to blame the Republican Senate. I think it's been clearly the case that it's the Democratic Speaker of the House.
So again, Mitch McConnell is blaming Nancy Pelosi. So once again, Mitch McConnell's blaming Nancy Pelosi for the problem, right? He's saying that she's like her big, huge liberal wish list. All right, well then, if you want to, you pare it down, then you meet them halfway, right? And they've never, the $3 trillion HEROES Act, which, advocates on the left say is actually what's needed to confront the huge problem that we're facing because of the coronavirus economic impacts, then you meet them halfway, and they're never meeting them halfway. Mitch is trying to just put any sort of a, damper on any sort of negotiations and blame Pelosi, which is, look at his ads. That's all he's got. He's blaming Nancy Pelosi for everything. He's trying to make the liberal boogeyman the problem in our country, when the reality is his corporate agenda, his number one agenda point, you heard him say it earlier, was to get liability relief for corporations. I'm sorry, that's the biggest problem we've got with the coronavirus, is that corporations who are irresponsible and kill their workers or kill the public are concerned about their liability, that they might be held accountable. That's his number one priority. That's what we have right now.
Right now. Look, 4 years ago, Senator McConnell said by the McConnell rule during an election year, we don't vote on a nominee. Let the people decide. Well, right now, with 22 days to an election, we should let the people decide. And what's really important is that we should be focusing on aid for Kentucky, as we just talked about, and not a Supreme Court nominee. But let's be clear about what this is all about. Senator McConnell, for a decade, tried to undermine and get rid of the Affordable Care Act legislatively. He could not do it. So now he is trying to do it in the courts. The first case that the Supreme Court's going to hear after the election is going to be about the Affordable Care Act. And that is something that we really cannot have in Kentucky, because the Affordable Care Act did a lot of good for many, many Kentuckians. And so I don't want to throw it away. I want to fix it.
Time's up. Senator McConnell.
Yeah, no one believes the Supreme Court is going to strike down the Affordable Care Act. What this is really about is trying to change the subject away from this extraordinary nominee who's before the.
That is the most outrageous thing I've ever heard. They are securing a Supreme Court that will strike down the Affordable Care Act. They're hearing it the week after the election. He just lied to us all. They are creating a Supreme Court that will shut down the Affordable Care Act, kick people off of their health care, take away health care from people with pre-existing conditions. And he just lied to all of us, because that's all they have. All the Republicans have on health care is lies. They don't have an actual plan. Outrageous.
In other words, add numbers so they can get an outcome that they like. She wants to make the District of Columbia a state, Puerto Rico a state, get rid of the filibuster in the Senate. In short, there's not a dime's worth of difference between my opponent and all of the national Democrats that you've watched. If you give them control of the government, that's what they'll do.
Lieutenant Colonel McGrath, an additional response?
Well, I'm going to do what's right for Kentucky, always. That's what I'm all about. And after 36 years in Washington, this is what you get. A man who basically, his word means nothing. Integrity, means nothing. Does one thing 4 years ago, then just changes his mind and makes up an excuse the next 4 years. You know, it's what everybody hates about Washington. Folks, we cannot change Washington until we change the people we send there, period.
Senator McConnell, additional response?
Yeah, you know, have you seen those ads she runs about the swamp? Washington is the swamp. Well, she wants to give the swamp a place where they're full of influenced peddlers and lobbyists, 2 senators, just like Kentucky. That's one of the things she's in favor of. That's why she's one of the most, if not the most progressive person in Kentucky. They want to completely change the rules in the Senate to give them an advantage, admit the district of the state, Puerto Rico is a state, that's 4 new senators for them, and then pack the Supreme Court so they'll get the outcomes they want that they can't pass through the Congress.
You want to respond?
I would just say that, you know, Senator McConnell is lying to you about my stances. And, you know, but that's par for the course.
Would you favor enlarging the court?
You know, I think we should be working on unpacking the Senate right now, because he has polarized and made this partisan mess of the Supreme Court so bad that people were even saying they were going to vote for or against the nominee before they even had the name. And in my mind, that's just not what we should be looking at. I'm focused on Kentucky.
Yeah, you notice she won't answer the question. And Joe Biden won't answer the question either. What Biden said is, I'll tell you after the election whether or not he's going to pass the Supreme Court. Well, we're entitled to know now whether you're going to pack the Supreme Court. Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who we all revere, said in
who's stacking the court? The Republicans are stacking the court right now as we speak. They are stacking the court. The end.
All year long. But here's the thing. Ruth Bader Ginsburg also said that she didn't think that her seat should be filled until the next president. And it does come down to this. When Ruth Bader Ginsburg was initially nominated and confirmed, she was confirmed 96-3 at the time. Think about that. You know, Mitch McConnell wasn't the Senate Majority Leader then, so we actually had regular order. Since he's become the leader, he has made this a partisan, complete weapon of a mess that we have with the Supreme Court. We got to get rid of him.
Senator,
every one of the big Supreme Court controversies was started by her party. Bork, Thomas, Kavanaugh. Look what they did to Kavanaugh a year ago. Tried to destroy his reputation. Look, under the Constitution, the president can nominate for a vacancy on the Supreme Court anytime he so chooses. And this president has, for a vacancy during an election year, just like a lot of other presidents have over the years. 19 times. 17 of the times they've been confirmed when you had the party of the president also in control of the Senate.
I'm not going to leave this general topic, but this question is this. If Judge Barrett is confirmed, there is some belief that Roe versus Wade, the law that gives women the right to an abortion, could be overturned. And a Western Kentucky University student wants to know your thoughts on that, and where do you stand on women's reproductive health issues? And we begin with Senator McConnell.
Well, I'm pro-life myself and enjoy the support of Right to Life and the Susan B. Anthony list and others who've worked on this issue over the years. But that's a different issue than what's before the Supreme Court. Every president has been surprised by how Supreme Court nominees that they've put up have voted. No one knows what may happen with any nominee. Every Republican nominee has been projected to be a disaster for women, and none of them have turned out that way. So we don't know how the court may rule. I suspect this nominee, just like Ruth Bader Ginsburg, will not answer any question about a case that might come before her. So we will not know. That's one of the reasons judges have a lifetime appointment. They're independent once they get on the court. If they're strict constructionists, they follow the Constitution and the law.
Time's up. Lieutenant Colonel McGrath.
Well, I'm Catholic, and I'm the mother of 3 small children, and this issue has been an important issue to me my whole life. I'm somebody that believes that the government should not be legislating my religion or my religious belief on others. And I do believe we already have reasonable restrictions on abortion in this country, as per outlined in Roe v. Wade. That said, as probably, well, I am the only woman up here on this stage today and the only mother, I'd like to point out that if you're talking about life issues, you have to talk about the fact that before the Affordable Care Act in Kentucky, there was not a single insurer on the individual market that would cover maternity care. And Senator McConnell has had a terrible record of trying to get rid of the Affordable Care Act all along. 50% of children born in Kentucky and rural Kentucky are born on Medicaid. And Senator McConnell wants to cut that. Those are life programs. And, as a mother, I always want to protect children and protect, health care for people.
Senator, additional
Well,
response.
speaking of health care, what she really wants and came out for was a single payer system. That means the government is in charge of your health care. And then she waffled a little bit and said a public option. There's really not a dime's worth of difference. If you put all of our health care in the hands of the government, think about it this way. If you went down to the Department of Motor Vehicles and asked them to build you a Corvette, do you think it will work out too well? That's what we're talking about here. You don't want the federal government to be entirely in charge of looking for testing, vaccines, treatment, and the long lines that will come as a result of the government taking over. That's where they really want to go. They're disappointed in Obamacare. They think it didn't go far enough. They want to go the whole way and put all of our health care in the hands of the government.
Time, Senator Lieutenant Colonel McGrath.
I'm not sure what the senator's talking about when he talks about they. I can tell you where I stand, and that I ran the primary and defeated my opponents that were for the Medicare for All system. But clearly, we need to fix health care in this country. We have 300,000 Kentuckians that still don't have health care in the middle of a pandemic. And Senator McConnell, 30 years ago ran an ad that said that he was going to fix health care. Now he's saying he just needs another 6 years to do it? Seriously? That's like my 8-year-old son saying, "Hey, Mom, I really am going to take out the trash, but I just need another 6 years."
Right,
He's not interested in fixing health care.
Early voting starts in the Commonwealth of Kentucky tomorrow, and more than 650,000 Kentuckians have requested absentee ballots across the country. There are questions over mail-in voting and the potential for fraud. Are you concerned about the integrity of this election? Lieutenant Colonel McGrath.
I think that we have, here in Kentucky, we have a Democratic governor who came together with a Republican Secretary of State, and they came up with a very good plan for everybody to vote. And it's wonderful. They actually came together and negotiated. Isn't that amazing? I wish we could do that at the federal level. But I think that Kentucky has never made it easier to vote than this year, and that's incredible. Early voting starts tomorrow. I am very concerned about the U.S. Postal Service. The Postal Service is such an important service. It provides prescription medication to our seniors, to our veterans, particularly in rural areas, and it needs to be helped through this coronavirus. And I'm afraid Senator McConnell hasn't done enough for that, and I would be helping our Postal Service because, let's face it, if you can
Kimberly wants to say something. Oh, Kimberly wants to say something. Got it. Hey. Kimberly, you're live.
Aaron, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Turn her up.
Yeah. Go.
Hi, everybody. Aaron and Ken and Nate and Doug, I wish I was there with you guys right there in Lexington at the party tonight, but unfortunately I'm here in Louisville, Kentucky, and I want to say just a couple of things, if I may. Number one, how dare Mitch McConnell bring up the notorious RBG? She's about to send a fly on his head for longer than she sent it on Pence's head. Number two, how dare he tell Amy McGrath, Lieutenant Colonel at that, what she thinks or what she wants, okay? That's the problem with the situation with these old guys in DC. They always want to tell we women what to do with our bodies, how to talk and how to act. And number three, as far as healthcare is concerned, the only healthcare that Mitch McConnell is concerned about will be his own.
Top on his agenda. And I agree with him on that. We should have him, and we should get him right now.
Senator McConnell?
Yeah, let's just take opioids, for example. $275 million that I directly brought into Kentucky for the opioid fight. $87 million of that was the largest grant the University of Kentucky has ever gotten. All of that was the outgrowth of two bipartisan bills passed, one of them back during the last 2 years of President Obama that I negotiated with him, called the 21st Century Cures Act. Then the CARES Act came later, and all of that I was deeply involved in negotiating that produced extraordinary results for the Commonwealth.
And meanwhile, you want to take away health care and Medicaid expansion, which covers 50% of Kentuckians who are addicted right now and getting them the treatment that they need. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
I'll give you a few seconds, Senator, if you want to respond to that. That was a little bit out of order in time.
You mean to her
Yes.
ridiculous comment?
Yes.
No.
All right. We'll move on. You're watching the Kentucky debate. We are here with the Republican and Democratic candidates for the U.S. Senate in Kentucky, the U.S. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell and retired Lieutenant Colonel Amy McGrath. And we are going through a series of questions, and they are answering those tonight for our audience watching across Kentucky and really around the country. The death of Breonna Taylor and the grand jury's decision has garnered national attention. It sparked more than 100 nights of protests in Louisville. Questions about racial injustice and what happened are on the minds of many of Kentucky's college students, we found out. And one UK student asked, "Do you think justice was done?" Senator McConnell?
Well, I have great tolerance for peaceful demonstrations. They're protected constitutional rights. I don't have much tolerance for violence and looting. For example, in Portland, just last night, they went on a rampage again and tore down a statue of Teddy Roosevelt and Abraham Lincoln. With regard to the Taylor case, the law sometimes does not, as Judge Barrett pointed out in her hearing this morning, the result that we all hope for. This was an incredible tragedy, a botched job, a terrible outcome, but law enforcement has to apply the law, and they're doing the best they can. I don't have any advice to give them, but I think in terms of justice in America, we have to follow the laws that were written. I'm a strong supporter of law enforcement. I enjoy the support of the Fraternal Order of Police in Kentucky. I don't think it's appropriate to condemn all police officers. Some of them are bad, but it's not appropriate to defund the police or demonize police officers in general.
Time, Senator. Lieutenant Colonel McGrath.
Mm-hmm. Well, first of all, as somebody who wore the uniform, did 3 combat tours protecting our country, and the mother of 3 small children, I have to say that I'm never for looting or rioting or destruction of property or violence in any way. And I do not want to defund the police. That all said, you know, the tragedy with Breonna Taylor was an absolute tragedy. And I think leaders have to take a step back and recognize that we need change in this country, that there is systemic racism, that we have to tackle issues of equity and
or this whole point now, funding the police department. We both have gone over to tonight against that.
I just want to say about the Breonna Taylor case. I'm right here in Louisville, Kentucky, and I've been down to Injustice Square. We have yet to see Mitch McConnell. Mitch McConnell says that he's for the police and for the union. And everybody knows that right now, the FOP propels what happens with the police. The FOP, the Fraternal Order of Police, holds all the power. So here in Louisville, we're going to be voting on that. The council will be pretty soon. And there's some things in there that do not do anything for the citizens. And does he think that justice was served? How would he know when the Attorney General is his puppet boy? Okay? So Mitch McConnell can kiss where the sun doesn't shine, because once again, he's out of touch, he's out of date, and he's out of his mind.
I always talk about the fact that, you don't get kicked out of the U.S. Army and then get to roll into the U.S. Navy. These are common sense reforms that we need to do. In addition to, banning no-knock search warrants at the federal level for federal drug cases. I mean, I think these are all things that we can do. And it's just, to me, I think it comes down to, let's get our Senate back again so that we can actually debate these things. The George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, Senator McConnell wouldn't even allow debate on it. We can make change in this country, and we have to.
Senator McConnell, your response.
Yeah, there is a role. There's a role for the federal government. I put on the floor of the Senate the Justice Act, which was drafted largely by Tim Scott, my Republican colleague from South Carolina, an African American himself, who's experienced the kind of extra suspicion that African Americans are frequently given. He crafted a bill that we thought made a lot of sense. I put it on the floor of the Senate. We couldn't get a single Democrat to even let us take it up and debate it and amend it. So here was another example of how Democrats in the Congress the last few months have not wanted anything to succeed. They've been slow walking everything that comes up, either by the House, putting up totally outrageous proposals, or Senate Democrats slow walking.
It's just outrageous. He's the leader of the Senate. He's the one that decides what comes to the Senate floor. For him to say, oh, Tim Scott couldn't get any traction on his bill, he's the guy that would have brought it to the Senate floor. His complaints about obstruction by the Democrats are outrageous, and it relies on the viewer having no clue that the minority party in the Senate has very little power right now, thanks to him destroying democracy. We've got to get rid of that guy.
And I also want to work on not just criminal justice reform, but there are real inequities in this country. We have a $20 billion gap between majority white schools and majority non-white schools in this country. In Kentucky, we have 2.5 times the rate, black Kentuckians are dying at 2.5 times the rate of white Kentuckians. We've got to fix these things. We've got to be serious about them.
Time, Senator.
Yeah, I'm glad she brought up the fact that I'm the majority leader. If she goes to Washington, the first vote she'll cast in the Senate is to make Chuck Schumer from New York the majority leader, transferring the influence and power that Kentucky has now, because I'm one of the 4 leaders not from New York or California, to New York, further degrading Kentucky's influence in Washington, making it less likely Kentucky gets preferential treatment like it frequently does as a result of my being in the position I'm in.
Okay.
That's what voting for her means, taking the majority leader title away from Kentucky and giving it to New York.
We here in Kentucky know better, okay? Senator McConnell likes to talk about his clout and power. Meanwhile, co-pays are up. The price of prescription medication has gone up. The price of insurance has gone up. The price of housing has gone up. Our people with pre-existing conditions are about ready to be thrown off their health care right now. We have the worst economy since the Great Depression, the worst job losses since the Great Recession. We have the highest cancer rates in the country, highest rates of diabetes. Senator McConnell's clout is literally killing us in Kentucky.
Senator McConnell, additional response.
Yeah, I used my clout to help our state. Let's take coal, for example. Barack Obama destroyed the coal industry, completely destroyed it. And so I'm dealing with the collateral damage. Ask Cecil Roberts, the head of the United Mine Workers. I'd produced both guaranteed health care benefits and pension benefits from coal miners, and am delivering retraining dollars so they can get new jobs to be employed once again. That's how I use the clout I have to help Kentucky.
Senator, thank you. Now, we're going to try to get an additional coal question in here before we're through, but funding for higher education has consistently been reduced. Here in Kentucky especially, it's placed a higher burden on students and their families. And currently, the federal government owns 92% of all student loans. So with tuition increasing, student loan debt mounting, how can colleges make college more accessible and more affordable? We begin this time with Senator McConnell.
Yeah. Well, I started by creating a program at the University of Louisville for undergraduate scholars at no cost to the government. There are 40 best and brightest kids there at any given time, 10 freshmen, 10 sophomores, 10 juniors, 10 seniors. The goal is for them to get a Ivy League type education right here in Kentucky in the hopes that they'll stay here, and most of them have. Let's take the CARES Act, for example. Out of the CARES Act is almost $475 million for Kentucky education, K through 12, and colleges and universities. In addition to that, at UK, I've produced over $300 million for UK, $200 million for U of L, $75 million for Western Kentucky University. I've paid a lot of attention to trying to help Kentucky higher education. And at the other end of the scale, at Southeast Community and Technical College, I'm going to be down there tomorrow. They were literally about to go out of business, and I intervened with the Secretary of Education and literally saved them from going out of business.
Time. Lieutenant Colonel McGrath.
Yeah. In the last 15 years, college debt has gone up about 540%. Here in Kentucky, we have some of the highest levels of college debt in the country. The first thing, and all of that happened, by the way, on his watch. The first thing I would do is hold Betsy DeVos accountable, because we have a program already in place to relieve people of their college debt, but 99% of the applicants are denied. So I would be jumping up and down in the Senate right now, finding out why is that? Why do we have a program where 99% of the applicants are denied? Some other things that we need. We need things like universal pre-K, and maybe it's because I'm the only mom up here, but, if we had more moms in the Senate, we'd have universal pre-K yesterday. There is $1.2 billion for Kentucky schools sitting on his desk right now. It's been sitting there for 6 months, all right? He's not interested in helping schools and public education.
Unless there's a need to respond, we'll move on. In 2018, a dozen of the top 50 poorest counties in the United States were in eastern Kentucky. And a UK student is asking, and here's the coal question, how will you address the losses left behind from the dwindling coal industry in a way that builds more sustainable and healthy communities? And we begin with Lieutenant Colonel McGrath.
Yeah. Recognize that 6 years ago, Senator McConnell sat here and said, you got to vote for me. All your coal jobs are going to come back. Meanwhile, in the last 6 years, we've lost 60% of coal jobs. He has used you and our state to bicker with the other side, and he hasn't planned for the future. Coal powered this country. I want to go to the Senate to make sure that our coal communities get what's owed back to them for powering this country. And that means investment in the future. It means investment in infrastructure like broadband and cell phone coverage, because no business is going to want to come to a county in Kentucky that cannot talk to the modern world. It means investment back in education and in healthcare. And those are the types of things we have to do to rebuild for an economy of the future. And we have to. Senator McConnell hasn't done it. He's let the coal industry die with no plan for the last 36 years. And look at where we are right now. Look at where we are.
Senator McConnell.
Kentuckians are.
I just heard Mitch McConnell. He just can't keep President Obama, a real president, out of his mouth. And if he continues to talk about President Obama, I'll send a fly his way. Second of all, I think Amy is doing a tremendous job giving him the facts. And all that Mitch McConnell is doing, which all Republicans are doing, is lying, lying, lying. And Amy McGrath is telling the truth. Now, I wish they would have gone on a little bit more about the equity part that we heard a little bit ago. But I do also understand that in rural Kentucky is very, very important for them as well. And no, Obama's administration wanted to help coal miners to move into the future. And once again, Mitch McConnell does nothing, absolutely nothing.
Starts with being honest with people. I've always taught that, to be honest with people in the Marine Corps. You know, the decline of coal is a function of renewable energy being cheaper. It's a function of automation. It's a function of fracking, which frankly Senator McConnell pushed for. But the real thing is we've got to have a plan for the future. And right now, the Reclaim Act, for example, is sitting on Senator McConnell's desk. This is an act that is bipartisan, was put up by Hal Rogers, would give $100 million to clean up Kentucky, put people with good quality union jobs to do that, the environmental hazards that we've seen from the industry here. And that's also introduced in the Senate by Senator Joe Manchin. Well, why is it sitting on McConnell's desk?
Time, Senator McConnell. Your additional
Well, let me ask you,
response?
what is that plan? What is the plan you've got that's going to produce jobs in Eastern Kentucky? Lay it out for us right now.
Okay, well, what the Reclaim Act would do is it would provide $100 million to clean up the environmental hazards that we've seen from the coal industry for many years and allow people to clean up the environmental hazards with good quality jobs and the transition to the future. And the transition to the future has got to include infrastructure. We badly need it. We have water systems in Martin County, Senator, that don't have clean water. We have sewer systems in Anderson County that need to be fixed. And we have to get into the 21st century. Now, I know you've been in Washington, D.C. for 36 years, but I've served all around the world. And I got to tell you, that no business is going to want to come to a county in Kentucky that cannot talk to the modern globalized world. That's broadband,
Senator McConnell,
that's cell phone
give
coverage.
you a few
Everything
seconds.
she's talking about is already being done.
Well,
And,
tell
you
it
know,
to the
she
people in
mentions
Eastern
she's in
Kentucky.
the Marines about every other sentence. I think her entire campaign is she's a Marine, she's a mom, and I've been there too long. What we need to see are specifically what she has in mind to fix the issues that she thinks need fixing. And I can tell you what she has in mind. She's going to go to Washington. She's going to make Chuck Schumer the majority leader.
All right.
She's going to
Senator, you've been there for 36 years. How's it looking, Kentucky? Have we fixed this stuff?
What that 36 years has produced in the last term alone, $17.5 billion for Kentucky, it would not have had she been there on the back bench,
All right.
having made Chuck Schumer from New York the majority leader of the Senate.
So here's a very specific question. Kentucky, like many, many other states, has a real problem with drug addiction. We know that. And recent data shows it has actually increased since the pandemic started. How do we turn the tide on this horrible opioid crisis? We've made glancing reference to that earlier, but let's get a more detailed response. Senator McConnell, we begin with you.
That's a really good question. It's been a devastating issue, not just for us, but around the world, around the country. What I've done is the 21st Century Cures Act in the last 2 years of Barack Obama, the CARES Act, after that, produced a total of $275 million for Kentucky. In that $275 million was the single largest grant in UK history, $87 million, the single biggest grant they've ever got. In addition to that, there are these law enforcement.
So once again, Mitch
areas
McConnell is claiming the CARES Act. He keeps talking about the CARES Act. What he fails to mention is the only pieces of the CARES Act that he was for was the money to corporations, right? which despite his best interest, his best efforts, became the Paycheck Protection Program, but it also became this amazing slush fund, right? He wanted $1 trillion slush fund. It was cut down because of negotiations. But here he is claiming all the credit for the things that supported healthcare, the things that supported our hospitals, the PPE, all the things in the CARES Act that people actually wanted. All he wanted was a zero accountability slush fund for corporations. So take the CARES Act out of your mouth.
Okay? The first thing that we need to do is hold Big Pharma accountable for that. He's incapable of doing that. He's incapable of doing it because he gets the most money from Big Pharma than any member of Congress last cycle, last year. That's why. He's basically bought off. But what we really need in addition is more resources for treatment and prevention, to include making sure that we don't take away the Affordable Care Act. Because what Senator McConnell would do was take that away, take away the Medicaid expansion, where 50% of our fellow Kentuckians who are addicted get their treatment through Medicaid. And he wants to undermine that. I don't. I want to fix the Affordable Care Act. I want to make health care easier to attain so that people can get the treatment and prevention and treatment that they need.
Time. Senator McConnell, nothing extra?
No, why don't we go on to the next topic?
All right. We will do that. Well, because you then have earned a few extra seconds here for a sort of a closing statement that you might want to make of this. In our final moment tonight, instead of the traditional little speech at the end, we thought that we would head to our closing statement with this question. Senator McConnell, you often say and have said here tonight that your leadership position and seniority pay big dividends for Kentucky. Lieutenant Colonel McGrath, you have turned the senator's 36 years in Washington against him with much of what you have said tonight, saying that he is out of touch with Kentucky and out of ideas. Who is right? And we'll begin with Lieutenant Colonel McGrath.
Well, look, I don't think this race is about Mitch McConnell, and I don't think it's about Amy McGrath. I think it's about Kentucky. Kentucky deserves a senator who sees you, who listens to you, and who will serve you. I joined the Marines a long time ago to serve my country, to make a difference for my country. And every single combat mission that I did, no matter how high I flew, no matter where I was in Afghanistan or Iraq, I never forgot who sent me there. I never forgot who it was I was serving. Senator McConnell stopped serving you a long time ago. I took an oath 6 times in my life to defend the Constitution of this country, to defend our country, okay? And to build a better America for American families and for my family, for my 3 young kids, Teddy, George, and Eleanor. I want to do the same. I want to be your senator because you deserve better. I ask for your vote. I want to remind everybody that early voting starts tomorrow. This is the most important election of our lifetime. It would be my privilege to serve you. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you, Senator McConnell.
Thanks, Bill. Thanks for the opportunity to be here. My opponent seems not to be bothered by the fact that Joe Biden has been in Washington 47 years. He'd been there 12 years before I got there. I think it's important not to be confused about what this election's about. Number one, if my opponent replaces me, her first vote in the Senate will be to make Chuck Schumer from New York the majority leader of the Senate, setting the agenda for the Senate, which will include changing the rules of the Senate to make it easier for liberals to win. Then they'll make the ultimate swamp, the District of Columbia, a state, giving influence peddlers and lobbyists 2 senators, just like Kentucky. And then they'll do that for Puerto Rico as well. That's 4 new liberal Democratic senators in perpetuity to guarantee they can get their outcome. And then the reason Joe Biden won't say whether or not he's going to pack the Supreme Court is because he is. That's exactly what they intend to do, so that the courts don't get in the way of any of their left-wing proposals. She will be a part of all of that. She will enable all of that. The single biggest vote you cast in the Senate is the first vote. Who is going to determine the agenda? She will make Chuck Schumer the agenda setter.
All right, this is 2020, so surprise. We have 30 seconds left for each of you, and I want to give Lieutenant Colonel McGrath,
Well,
you have an additional 30 seconds.
yeah.
We'll cut you off hard here.
I would simply say to my fellow Americans, all you just heard, how's it working out for you right now? How's Kentucky looking? Are you better off than you were 6 years ago? Are you better off than you were 36 years ago? I mean, we have the leader of a Senate right now that is so dysfunctional and so partisan that even in the middle of a national crisis, they can't get things done for Kentucky. You want more of that? I don't. I want change. I know that our country is better than this.
Thank you. Senator McConnell, 30
It's not
seconds.
complicated. Do you want somebody from New York to be setting the agenda for America and not terribly interested in Kentucky? Or do you want to continue to have one of the 4 congressional leaders from our state looking out for Kentucky, giving Kentucky an opportunity to punch above its weight, providing extra assistance for Kentucky? That's the question. She will transfer all of that to New York. I will keep it in Kentucky.
That's our time. Candidates, thank you very much. We appreciate you being here tonight very much, and everybody getting a chance to hear from you this evening. And we'd like to thank our sponsors, Gray Television and the University of Kentucky Student Government Association. Early voting begins across Kentucky tomorrow. The election is Tuesday, November 3rd. The polls on Election Day will be open 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Be sure to vote. Thank you for joining us.
Hello, hello, hello. It's Moscow Mitch Monday. We are your Mitch McConnell Retirement Committee, and we are doing a special debate edition. So we're live streaming later than we normally are. So if Nate nods off, that's why. But I think it was a great debate. I'm so glad we had a chance to watch it live, see what was happening, see the lies. We didn't actually keep a lie counter, but we should have, and it probably would have hit the triple digits. Mitch McConnell had nothing but fear and lies to work against Amy McGrath, and I think she did a great job of kind of nailing him on a number of different important points. So we're going to go into our kind of traditional Moscow Mitch Monday. We're going to bring a few different elements to it. We've got Mitch in the news. We're going to do following Mitch's money. So we've got Doug here. We've got talking about judicial appointments and the election. We've got Campaigns Corner with Sarah Lynn Cunningham from the Sierra Club, which is really exciting to me. I think we do need to talk more about this issue. But we also have updates on our campaigns to ditch Mitch. I hope that after watching that debate, you are fired up to ditch Mitch, right? We are 22 days out, right? So we've got 3 weeks to make it happen, and that's going to require, I think, a lot. But what we've got is our updates on our See Senator Saturday or Save Our SCOTUS Saturday demonstrations. We have got a real need to amplify the messages we're putting out. So if you could help us in our efforts to fundraise, we put a goal of raising $500 a week, which we are well shy of right now. So please do, if you want to help us get the word out about what are the issues that are critical in this election, we've got 3 weeks to put them out there, and it would be awesome if you could make an investment in our all-volunteer campaign to hold Mitch accountable. All right, so that's pretty much the show. I wanted to say, we're excited because we're in a new location. We've actually, we left our homes, which is crazy. Obviously I've got my mask here, but I'm close to, legally, CDC recommended guidelines. We are distanced, but we are all in the same space, which is kind of exciting for us. And we're here at the Loudon House, which is a beautiful space, and we're surrounded by our producer Ken's art. So Ken Howell's art is all around us, and it's really cool. It's not calming. Just to be clear, it's a soothing situation that we've got here. We're a little edgy, which I think is probably what we need to tackle Mitch over the next 3 weeks. Did I say there's 3 weeks? We've only got 3 weeks, people. All right, so we're going to do introductions. Say your name, where you're from, and what does your sign say today. And my name's Aaron. I'm from the Loudon House today, and my sign says "Save Our Climate, Ditch Mitch." And I think we will go to Kimberly next. And again, if you're watching the live stream, if you're watching this on Facebook or YouTube or whatever, leave a comment. What does your protest sign say today? After watching that debate, what are you fired up about? What's your protest sign say today? Hey, Kimberly, is your camera on? Can you turn your camera on? Oh, Kimberly's not here. So we're going to go to Nate. Let's go to Nate. Let's go to Nate. Oh, Kimberly's back. So, all right. There she is.
Hey, you guys. I am Kimberly Cecil Jones, and I'm right here in Louisville, Kentucky. And my sign says today, after watching the debate, hashtag Mitch is going to hell.
That was almost a spit take. I almost like wow, real. That's strong words. Strong words, Kimberly. Very strong words. All right, Nate, what's up?
Hey folks, this is Nate Orshan, not broadcasting from my little
Home in South Frankfurt with Kit, but instead today joining my colleagues here at the Mitch McConnell Retirement Committee at Loudon House. And my sign, which is going to take a little room here, but imagine it in your mind, can tell you, save yourself, vote Amy McGrath, and put a piece of amazing activist art from Ken Cravens on your wall today.
That's awesome. I am looking at these pieces, and I think you should come to the Loudon House and check them out. maybe they're not for the bedroom, right? Because again, I think they're a little aggressive for going to sleep, but they are definitely some great art that we're excited to showcase. Nate's got the best backdrop, clearly. So we're going now to Mitch in the news. I think the first story coming to us from Kimberly, I believe, who, if she's there and can turn on her camera, will have the first story. All right. Or we're just going to go to Nate. Nate, who's got story number 2, but becomes story number 1. All right.
I moved up the list here. All right. So thanks, Aaron. So this week, we learned that Mitch hasn't been to the White House in 2 months. Now, that's an interesting fact, given that both his and our president's elections are coming up, and their political futures would appear to be yoked together. I mean, Trump really, really needs the Senate in order to pass bills such as, maybe another round of disaster relief? Bills that might make the Republican Party and its standard bearer, that's Donald Trump, look better in the run-up to November. And Mitch has, for a long time now, linked his political future to Trump, who has had the power of making life very difficult for any Republican office holder who's seeking re-election for the 7th time, but maybe gets on the wrong side of the president. It's not a natural fit, as we've noted before here on Mitch in the News. But it is the case that Mitch has had to coordinate with the White House closely when the chips seemed really to be down for the standard bearer of the Republican Party, that's Donald Trump. So, what could possibly have kept Mitch physically away from his patron of necessity for the past 2 months? Hint, it rhymes with Winona virus. Here's the quotation that was reported in the BBC this past Thursday, October 8th. Quote, speaking to reporters in Kentucky, Mr. McConnell said he steered clear of the White House in the last 2 months, quote, because my impression was their approach to how to handle this was different from mine, unquote. He later also noted that he, quote, personally didn't feel that they were approaching the protection from this illness, unquote, in the way he felt, quote, was appropriate for the Senate, unquote. Well, shut my mouth and call me Andy. Our senior senator and I finally agree on something. The White House's approach is indeed 180 degrees different from how any responsible, compassionate, grown-ass adult in a position of leadership would manage the deadly pandemic, starting with, let's see, 1, being honest with the public about the disease's lethality and its means of spreading. 2, continuing with coordinating a national response that gets all the states taking the same rigorous steps to protect us all. And 3, at a minimum, modeling safe, hygienic behavior by not cramming maskless people into rallies and rose garden events where they can infect one another willy-nilly. But hold on, Mitch is so busy patting himself on the back for taking coronavirus infection seriously. He thinks we fellow Kentucky voters aren't going to notice that if he had really taken it seriously from the beginning, he would have done so much more for us. For starters, he could have called the president out or said anything in public when it was clear from the start that Trump wasn't taking the pandemic as seriously as he needed to. Say what you will about Mitch, and Lord knows we do around these here parts, but he is not a dumb guy, and he knows a national public health crisis when he sees one. He let Trump's denial and dithering go on without any resistance. And then there's the small matter of what Kentucky and our country needs when our economy necessarily slows down because of a raging pandemic, namely massive amounts of assistance from the government. Now, you shouldn't need to be John Maynard Keynes to know that when people become suddenly almost violently unemployed because of a disaster like this pandemic, the only entity that can keep those people's basic living costs from bankrupting them or making them homeless is the federal government. I know it's not like Mitch controls the Senate, but he could use his office, his seniority, his experience, his gravitas, I don't know, the fact that he knows where all the bodies are buried for his caucus members, and he could throw himself into doing right by the country and getting it the relief funding it needs. And hey, man, even if it's a Sisyphean task that doesn't literally pay off, imagine what a good look it would be to us here in Kentucky, us voters, to see the senator rolling up his sleeves and fighting like hell just to try to get us what we need to get us through this recession. But no, the man who's so proud of himself for recognizing how bad the pandemic is to the health of senators and himself, wear those masks, that man doesn't have the courage to do anything more than ram through a Supreme Court justice just 3 weeks before the election. But good news. I do know someone who has the guts to fight for appropriate coronavirus relief funding in the Senate. Her name is Amy McGrath. And if we elect her, she is going to roll up her sleeves and work relentlessly for keeping Kentuckians fed, housed, and healthy. Because unlike our currently useless senator, a Marine, even retired, doesn't run away from their righteous mission. From Moscow, Mitch Monday, I'm Nate Orshan.
All right. Ooh, nice work, Nate. All right, so thanks so much for sharing that really, really hard-hitting essay. Obviously, Mitch has been, totally MIA, right? So here we are, we're in the midst of this pandemic. As we heard in that debate, all he's got is the CARES Act. It's like a broken record again and again and again with the CARES Act, ignoring where we are right now.
Look what I did for you half a year ago.
Wasn't that great 6 months ago when we were helping you, and now you're being evicted, and now you don't have your job because the virus is spiking, and we don't have a national strategy to deal with it. But I'm not going to pass anything because I can't actually work with Nancy Pelosi, because otherwise she could claim that I worked with her. Right? Like, it is just it's to watch this whole thing play out when real lives are at stake. It is infuriating. And to see Mitch, blaming Democrats, right? That's all he had, blaming Democrats. It's not their fault. They have a package. It's comprehensive. Meet us halfway and get this thing fixed. So, and then I think we're going to go to Kimberly to hear about her story, right? Kimberly, you there? Kimberly.
She came back for a second.
She did. She came back, and then she was not that back. All right. So Kimberly is going to go story number 3. That's what we're going to do with Kimberly. All right. So for Mitch in the News, my story. This one I'm actually bringing to us from Fox News, which I'll be honest, I didn't actually watch it to find this. This was a link that was shared in my social media. But they're covering this, Amy Coney Bryant, the nomination, and Mitch is going like full-throated, blaming the Democrats, scaring people away because, they're going after her for her religion, right? So they're attacking Trump's SCOTUS nominee over her religion. Amy Coney Barrett is indeed Catholic. But I guess the argument that Mitch was making on Fox is that her abortion views are kind of overly influenced on her faith, right? Or influenced by her faith. So the fact that people are challenging her abortion views means they're challenging her faith. That's how he's kind of putting that together. Of course, the thing that is really problematic about this is that, Catholicism is not a wholly owned subsidiary of the right wing. Right? As much as the right would like that to be the case, the reality of it is, who else is Catholic? I don't know. Joe Biden. Joe Biden is Catholic. Joe Biden, carries a rosary with him wherever he goes. Joe Biden brings up his faith constantly. So one would hope that even the most out of tune Fox viewers is going to catch on to the fact that, no, it's not that the Democrats are attacking her faith. They're attacking what she would do on abortion, right? So that's the challenge here. It's not about her faith. It's about that wall, that separation of church and state. So if you are letting your faith guide your interpretation of the law, that's a problem, because that's not what our country was founded on. And we need to see a far more kind of robust conversation about what she would do as a juror, right? And she comes to us from, a very interesting background. And it's not, my concern is not about Notre Dame and a Catholic university. That's not my concern. My concern is, her background is that she has been embraced and endorsed by right-wing institutions that I think are absolutely destroying the court, right? If you guys are not paying attention to what Heather Cox Richardson is doing, this historian, she's on Facebook. She does a post almost every day about kind of the day in history, basically the history we're living right now. But she has a wonderfully informative post this weekend that was about the fact that since Nixon, Republicans have appointed 15 Supreme Court justices. All right, so that's 15 from the Republicans. How many from the Democrats? 4. There have only been 4 Supreme Court nominees from the Democrats that have made it onto the Supreme Court. And that's, 2 terms from Obama, 2 terms from Clinton, versus, 2 terms from Bush, and then, of course, Nixon and Ford. And then Carter, poor Jimmy Carter, didn't actually get a single appointment through. So the idea that, we've got balance on our court is a sham, right? The thing that's been happening, though, is that the right wing has weaponized the Supreme Court in a way that the left really hasn't. And I think I'm biased, but I think that's an honest assessment of what's happened, right? So there was a big fight over Bork, and they stopped him because he had some very out of the mainstream views. But then since then, we've seen a lot of vitriol from the right about this. And the idea, though, is that the Federalist Society has now become the arbiter of who is an appropriate judicial appointment. So if you are not blessed by the Federalist Society, you are not going to get on that short list of potential nominees to the Supreme Court. And the Federalist Society is this it's very clear about what they want to do. They've got outside the mainstream conservative views, judicial views that are about, abortion, but mostly it's not about abortion. It's about kind of the corporate rights. So things like Citizens United, weakening the Voting Rights Act. This stuff is being decided by Federalist Society blessed judicial appointments. And the course, I think, or the arc of where the judicial appointments and the decisions are being made is very clear. They're stripping away workers' rights. They're stripping away environmental rights. They're, of course, stripping away a women's right to choose healthcare options. But that's the real, I think, concern for me. It's not about her affiliation with the Catholic Church. It's her affiliation with the Federalist Society that is the murky and scary piece of what's deciding her take on the law. So anyway, what I did want to just point out is that the corporate rule is, at the end of the day, what the Federalist Society is pushing, what Republicans are pushing. That's their priority. If we discuss abortion, which I think we should, which I think we heard it in the debate. Amy discussed the fact that she's Catholic and that she's not really a clear fan of abortion, but the fact that a woman should have a right to choose, right? It's like, who gets to make the decision about the abortion? Is it the woman and her doctor and her faith, or is it the federal government? And I think most people, if you have that conversation, most people really aren't comfortable with the federal government making that determination. But we never have the conversation long enough to think through, what does that really mean to be pro-life, right? Can you be pro-life and cut women's access to birth control? Because if you're pro-life, you want to keep women from ever having to make that horrible decision. So women should have easy access to birth control. The Affordable Care does that. The Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, does that, requires that, right? But here, the same judicial appointments are lining up to, cut Obamacare, cut the Affordable Care Act as much as they can. So, just coming back to it, I think faith is important. Faith's important to me. I'm a Christian. I'll say it. And if you think about where Jesus came down on some of these issues, right? Jesus on abortion, scrutinized the Bible. He didn't talk about abortion. And there clearly were historical precedents for that situation happening back then. When did you see, Jesus getting engaged and fighting about, public policy I think it was when he was flipping, the tables over in the temple. When he was running the money changers out of the temple was when he had a very clear take on that kind of wall between religion and commerce. And he came down on the side of a faith that was not being twisted and sold to people. And I think that same question should be asked right now. What is going on with our faith, and where is religion coming down, and where is commerce coming down, or these corporate influences? I think it's time for some money changers to be driven out of the temple, because it's very clear to me that these faith-orientated, these people who wrap themselves in their faith are really just advancing a corporate agenda. So that's kind of my take on where we are right now in this discussion about faith and the Supreme Court. It's not about faith. It's just about their adherence to these corporate interests that are somehow have become muddied and intertwined with their faith. So that's me for Mitch in the News. And I don't know, if folks have a thought about it. Nate, if that's an issue you've been paying attention to, the role of Amy Coney Barrett and faith in the conversation about her appointment.
Oh yeah, I mean,
than what you've said, but I think it needs to be highlighted that the Republicans are doing one of these classic acts of misdirection, right, where they will pull something, an attribute of the candidate, and try to make you focus on that, and then try to make that into this, the term is in logic, the straw man argument, like, oh, they're going to be against her because she's a Catholic and blah, 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 blah. And as you said, no, it's about this really kind of reactionary conservatism that is completely out of step with mainstream American thinking. And it's not just me spewing this here in the Loudon House tonight. This is statistics that show that most Americans are not for hardcore restrictions against abortion. Most Americans are actually not for hardcore anything that's conservative, right? On a variety of issues, whether you're talking about the climate or reproductive rights or education. I mean, most Americans are much more left of center than the Republicans would like you to believe. So what do? When they have someone like this that they're going to try to ram through quickly to get them on the Supreme Court, they'll focus on something that, is sort of hot and tasty, namely the notion that she's a religion that people would want to discriminate against. But
yeah,
no.
It is clearly a distraction. Right? It is, as you said, misdirection, squirrel, and off Eddie goes. But at this point, we should be on to them, right? Because they've been doing it for how long? So I think the idea that they're going to jam through the Supreme Court nomination, even though 4 years ago the rules were completely different, right? Even though this is packing the court. Right, this is what they're doing. So they stole a seat with Merrick Garland. They stole another seat right now as they're jamming something through, which clearly should not be appointed under this administration. People are already voting. In Kentucky, we start voting tomorrow. Early voting happens now. So the idea that they're going to appoint somebody while the election is underway is incredibly offensive and inconsistent. But they're going to do it because what's Mitch's rule? It's not about consistency. It's not about ethics. It's about power. His number one goal is to grab power, keep power, build power for his corporate interests, and that's what's going on. Kimberly, any thoughts about that, or do you want to jump into your story?
Mitch and his power. All I can say about that, Aaron, is let's take the power away from him with our votes. But I am ready to do my Mitch in the News. First of all, my girl, Amy McGrath, okay? Amy McGrath had a wonderful column in the Courier Journal. Actually, it was recently that sums up what a twisted and useless senator that Mitch McConnell really is. And it is also for anyone that needs health care, pointing out how fixated Mitch is on overturning Obamacare, aka ACA, without any plan to replace it. And this actually is a quote from the column where it says right here, McConnell is backing a lawsuit to overturn the ACA that will be heard by the Supreme Court. in November. How about this? November the 10th is when the Supreme Court will hear this. His determination to fill the vacant seat on the court as fast as possible, no matter the cost, with someone he believes will vote the way that he wants, just shows how committed that Mitch is to ripping away health care from close to 500,000 Kentuckians, and allowing health insurance companies to deny coverage to more than 70,000 Kentuckians who have had COVID-19, and 1.8 million Kentuckians with pre-existing conditions. So let's just talk about Mitch and Obamacare, okay, for a second here. If you recall, Obamacare was a policy formulated by the Heritage Foundation, a conservative think tank. It was actually implemented in Massachusetts under Governor Mitt Romney. So this is really how Republicans can improve health care. They have no policy issues or ideas to improve health care other than this. And because of Mitch and the Republicans' unwillingness to do anything with the Obama administration, kept them from engaging. Now, if you think about Mitch and healthcare, okay, first of all, we know that Amy is and was a big fan of John McCain. And at that moment when John McCain went to the floor, I remember it quite well, and as the final vote, he said no. He gave the thumbs down. You all remember this? I saw it in real time. I was like, and in addition to that, it wasn't because he wanted Mitch to lose. It was because he did not want the American people to go without health care. And there was no plan to legitimately replace that plan. And that's where we still are today, years later. No beautiful, better, cheaper way coming from this White House, of course, and or this Senate. Period. I'll put the T on it. Period. The thing about it is, we really don't believe Mitch when he says anything remotely about he wants to protect people with pre-existing conditions, including those that have had COVID-19, because he won't, and he never has, and he never will. You know, the Republicans, they're basically out of ideas. And, you know, as far as Obamacare, that was their best idea. So back to you, Aaron, and that was Mitch in the News.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Kimberly. And, you know, I do think that the healthcare issue is so critical for us to spend some time on, right? Each and every episode of Moscow Mitch Monday, we need to be talking about healthcare because, you know, it's important. And keep challenging Mitch. He has no plan. All he's got is this kind of unwavering hatred of the the Affordable Care Act or Obamacare. Probably because it has Obama's name on it. I don't know. I feel like that's a lot of their motivation. All right, so we're now moving on. We're moving on to Campaigns Corner. This is a really exciting Campaigns Corner. For this edition, we're going to dive in on climate change. So that existential threat to our society. We got, you know, California and Colorado in flames, huge wildfires, bigger and hotter due to climate change. We got Hurricane Delta. The reason it's Hurricane Delta and not like some name is because they ran through all the letters of the alphabet and had to come back around to the other side, which never happens, right? So we got Hurricane Delta, which just came ashore the same path as Hurricane Laura. It went from a tropical storm to a Category 4 like overnight. So these hurricanes are getting, you know, bigger, they're slower, they're wetter due to climate change. And despite these, you know, wildfires in the news and the hurricanes in the news, the U.S. fails to take any sort of, you know, demonstrable action, right? And we've got, you know, of course, our current Senate leader. We've got the current White House that just do not see any problem that needs to be addressed with policy in terms of climate change. I actually, just recently saw an article from The Guardian that was in the Guardian newspaper last month, which shows that Kentucky's climate is changing quickly. The Bluegrass State is actually the 9th most threatened state in the country by long-term climate change impacts, according to a recent study by safehome.org, which is based on data from Climate Central. That puts it ahead even of California, where wildfires recently have wreaked havoc. Erratic weather, exceptional heat, drought, wildfires, and flooding all threaten Kentucky. Going on from that article, McConnell has accepted more than $3 million from the coal, oil, and gas industries over the course of his career. Critics say he's returned the favor with handouts, tax breaks, and regulatory cuts to keep the dying industry aloft. In 2017, McConnell joined the Trump administration in urging America's withdrawal from the Paris Climate Agreement. In 2019, he engineered what he admitted was a show vote intended to kill the Green New Deal. As a campaigner, McConnell has framed efforts to rein in the coal industry as the meddling of a distant federal government out of touch with Kentuckians' way of life. That's not to say coal has been good to Kentuckians of late. The coal industry employed some 38,000 Kentuckians when McConnell took office in 1985. It's below 4,000 today. Workers in the mountainous eastern part of the state have found themselves laid off and uncompensated for their work by coal bosses, and deregulation has led to one of the worst black lung epidemics on record. Eastern Kentucky counties are among the poorest in the nation, with poverty rates around 40%. The water in some of those counties is either undrinkable or unaffordable. Meanwhile, McConnell sits on the Senate Agricultural Committee, but has seemed indifferent to how climate change threatens Kentucky's sizable agricultural sector. That's from that article, which I think is really a powerful article. We'll share that in the comments. But one individual who was quoted in that article was Sarah Lynn Cunningham. Sarah Lynn Cunningham is a longtime activist from the Louisville area, has done an amazing amount of work on climate change, and we're very honored to have her with us tonight. What's that? Oh, you're muted, Sarah?
Yeah,
so you might
I
need to unmute.
Can you hear me now?
There you are.
So, first of all, that article did such a good job. I don't think I need to say too much. My thoughts are that climate change is really the latest symptom of the foundational problem. And that is, I believe that the lack of campaign finance reform is the mother of all reforms. It really doesn't matter what issue you're concerned about. If money is in the way, you're not going to see any resolution. And I really regret that I lost the name of a book that somebody put out a couple of years ago, because I wished I could have gotten it and read it and used it. But the thesis was this: if Congress solves a problem, nobody's going to give them any money. If they don't solve a problem and periodically talk about it, or solve it for 6 to 9 months, when it comes back up again, everybody's lining up and writing checks, at least the vested interests that have the professional lobbyist. And therefore, as long as they have to raise so much money for re-election, they've got a hell of a disincentive to solve any problems at all. In the case of Mitch McConnell, I don't think I have to tell you guys, he is so beholden to the fossil fuel industry that he can't even acknowledge climate change. You can go onto his campaign website and search it, as I have done, for the words climate, pollution, environment. You get nothing. But what's really telltale is not even the word conservation. Now, I kind of think conservation and conservative ought to be synonymous, but they're not. So there's something kind of screwed up there, I would say. And of course, if he's, to me, the more responsible than anybody for the nomination of all these conservative federal judges. Well, and I don't know if you all watched the debate this evening, but once again, McConnell talked about Obama's war on coal. Well, the cold, harsh reality here is that George Bush ignored not one, not two, but 3 Supreme Court rulings that said the federal government, specifically the EPA, must regulate greenhouse gases per the Clean Air Act. So Bush ignored that. Obama came in and followed those three SCOTUS rulings, and then suddenly he's accused of a war on coal, which is, of course, complete BS. It's the competition from cheap natural gas and renewables that's causing the problem. And what's really sad is another endemic thing is McConnell doesn't care about people in Kentucky, because if he did, he would be helping the people who are losing their jobs through this failure of the economic system to keep those jobs. And the failure is a normal capitalism thing. I don't know why we can't have it. Sometimes I'm being facetious. McConnell has also protected Trump as he has gutted one federal environmental law, policy, and regulation ad nauseum. Why is my phone ringing? Do you all still hear me? I don't know what that was about. This is a new laptop, and I still sometimes get distracted by stuff I've never seen before. Then, if somebody else, such as the House, produces environmental legislation, he kills it. There is a national organization called the League of Conservation Voters, which ranks sitting federal politicians for their scores, or they give them a score for how they have voted on environmental legislation. And Mitch McConnell, as well as Representatives James Comer and Hal Rogers, have a 7% score. That's like about as flunking as you can get. But for our boy, Representative Thomas Massey, who got a 3%. So, I guess he had to have somebody be a little worse. But, like I say, to me, the bottom line is we're not debating the issues of climate change in Washington. We're really just protecting the vested interest, the highest dollar, to keep Mitch in power. And I truly believe that until we can fix that, we're going to be left with grassroots action. I think grassroots action can do some amazing stuff. Look at this photo. I'm going to pull it up closer. Oh, this is awesome. See this photo?
God. Yeah.
This was downtown Louisville in 1943. And you couldn't see 2 blocks away because of coal smoke. That is why my grandmother died and great-grandmother died of COPD, though they never smoked cigarettes. It's because they sucked in all this damn coal dust. Mitch McConnell acts like that would be okay to go back to it. I don't think he's really that stupid, because he knows that would really cost him a lot of votes. But the reason I show you this is that we didn't solve that problem through politics and our political system. We solved it with grassroots action. So I don't want to underestimate what we could do to solve climate change with leadership and grassroots action, but we really don't have time to rely upon that solely. We desperately need game-changing federal legislation to put everybody on the same playing field and get this show on the road. End of speech.
That's great. Thank you so much, Sarah Lynn, for joining us. I'd be interested to hear your take on it. So, in the grand scheme of things, Mitch McConnell's been there for 36 years. He's been, fighting climate change legislation every step of the way. How important is this election, right? He's been there every 6 years. He gets reelected, and every 6 years, we still don't do anything on climate change. Why does it matter now?
Well, I actually am a bit of an amateur historian. That's how I came by that photograph. In the history of the United States, we have never had game-changing environmental legislation unless and until we had a huge disaster. I've got a book with a table, and every federal environmental law that we have right before it was some huge disaster where people died. So that's a pattern that I suspect is going to continue. Now, I'd like to think that New Orleans getting hit twice, not New Orleans, but rural Louisiana getting hit twice lately, and all the other coastal communities that have been hit so hard with hurricanes. I'd like to think that would be the major severe disaster to get people in gear, but it's not, because of this kind of politicization of science. But anyway, let's just let me just actually quit digressing here. So things will have to get worse before the public demands that Congress do anything. And the problem is greenhouse gases. There's multiple. We say gases plural for a reason, but the biggest one is carbon dioxide, biggest one by volume. It is in the atmosphere on the order of a century. So the pollution we put into the atmosphere today by burning fossil fuels are going to be around for a century. We do not get to hit the brakes and everything suddenly goes away. And that's why everything is way past due. Secondly, there are these things in nature called feedback loops where things feed on themselves, and we are beginning to trigger the feedback loops. And if we trigger too many of them too far, we can't turn back.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're hearing more and more just dire predictions about how many years we have to act. And, you know, it seems very much like that window of opportunity to keep our climate, you know, habitable is closing on our fingers, right? And again, like the idea that we're saving the planet, that's, you know, the planet will be here. What we're trying to do is save our own asses, right? Because we are not, the amount of, you know, the concern the Republican Party have about refugees, right? Just wait until, you know, climate change goes up to 11 and the number of refugees that are going to be flooding across our borders because people cannot live where they live now. And we are a little bit more immune than other, you know, ecosystems, but we're definitely having a lot, you know, we are going to be influenced. The world will be influenced. We will see massive amounts of relocation. And that's if we don't act now, right?
Yeah, and we're already seeing mass extinction of animal and insect species, plant species, because they can't migrate fast enough to you know, maintain the conditions that they need to survive. But yes, the planet's going to survive. The question is it with us or without us?
Yeah, yeah. Hey, Sarah Lynn, thank you so much for hanging with us, and thank you so much for you know, presenting the Sierra Club perspective on this election, which I'm going to, you know, just to be perfectly painfully obvious, the Sierra Club does not support the re-election of Mitch McConnell, correct?
Well, we issued what we call an anti-endorsement. What happens is in Kentucky statewide races, the Democratic or more liberal candidate doesn't want our endorsement because they're worried that anybody in the middle will step back and go with their opponent. So we sent our questionnaire to both Amy McGrath and Mitch McConnell's campaigns, and neither of them returned it. So we couldn't conduct an interview and therefore couldn't endorse Amy McGrath. We don't take that personally, but it also means that we can only anti-endorse McConnell, and that's the document that I wrote for the statewide newspaper, and my remarks tonight were basically a recap of that anti-endorsement.
Well, speaking to you as the Mitch McConnell Retirement Committee, you know, we don't have a problem with that framing. Obviously, Mitch is a huge problem, and you know, anyone but Mitch would be an improvement. But talking to Amy, clearly she understands the relevance and the urgency of climate change. She likes to think about it from a national security perspective, which is a wholly legitimate way of looking at climate change. Absolutely. So, Sarah Lynn Cunningham, thanks again for being with us and sharing that perspective, and have a great night.
You're welcome. Take care. Thank y'all.
Awesome.
Fingers
so
crossed.
Sarah Lynn is an absolute just treasure. If you are concerned about climate, if you want places to get good information, turn to her, find her. She is, I think, really, really a person that you can, you know, trust the information she's giving, and she's not afraid to tell the truth about what's going on. She's politically fearless, which is something I very much admire about her. All right, so next up, we're going to our call to action. So that is, in case you have not been paying attention, the call to action is to vote. We have got to vote. Voting is underway right now as we speak. All right, well, I think tomorrow is the official start of early voting. So if you want to go in person to vote, you can do that, and that's pretty fantastic. It's a much safer situation. It's a little confusing, because if you normally just go down to your firehouse and vote on election day. Don't do that this year. You're going to have to educate yourself because in Fayette County, and I don't know if we've got that graphic, but we have 6 locations where you can go and vote. There it is. So where you can go and vote in person starting tomorrow. I think it's from 9 to 4:30 or something like that. But you can also drop off your ballot if you requested an absentee ballot. Those locations a lot of them are drop-off locations. But that's important. First thing, make sure your vote is managed, that you've got a plan, that it gets counted. If you do a drop-off or if you do it by mail, you can actually check on the govoteky.com website. You can see if your ballot has been returned, if they have it there, which is pretty cool. But beyond that, we need to mobilize other people to vote. So I'm assuming that if you are watching the Mitch McConnell Retirement Committee live stream, you're probably good on voting, right? You get that this is important. But I bet you've got a lot of friends and family who are not, in fact, watching the Mitch McConnell Retirement Committee live stream because our numbers are pretty low. So, it's a good odds that they're not watching. What you need to do is adopt them and help them to vote. And so we've got a special challenge. We've got a tool to do that. We're going to be sending out weekly reminders about information to share with your friends. But all you need to do is take 5 minutes, come up with your list of people who, you could encourage to vote and give them information they need. Maybe encourage them to vote for, the non-Mitch candidate. And that they're going to listen to you because you're a respected person, not some, internet meme, or, you're not Fox News. So you're actually trustworthy in terms of your information that you're giving them. And if they're Fox News watchers, that's fine. I'm going to say this. We have been protesting Mitch McConnell every Saturday for a while now, right? And every time we're out there with our banners, clearly anti-Mitch, not a single individual has ever said, Mitch 2020. No one ever fights us about Mitch. They will drive by and occasionally, wave with only one finger and yell Trump 2020. Right. But no one is defending Mitch, right? So I think we can peel off a fair number of Republican voters, conservative voters, who get that for 36 years, Mitch has taken care of himself and he's now this multimillionaire. And Kentucky's worse off than we were when he first went into office, right? So I think we can do that, but it's going to require you engaging your family, your friends, your barista. Oh, I don't know if we really have baristas anymore, but what do we have? Who do we actually see? Coworkers, maybe we see them over Zoom. You can probably ask them about their take on the election and encourage them to have a plan to vote. So that's the call to action. Any thoughts, Nate, about our Empower plan? Have you been paying attention to that?
Yeah, a little. I mean, the committee had a training last week with this great guy, Cornelius, out of Michigan, and works for the Empower organization. And it's pretty cool. And it's the nice thing about it is it really steps you through all the steps you need to take that they know, because they've been doing this for a while now, and they've sort of got this down, to engage, and motivate the people in your life to go out and engage other people and engage themselves in voting behavior. It's funny. Some of it sometimes comes across a little bit like, I don't know what, like an Avon program or something like, your friends and your 10 friends and your 10 friends. But it's not, this is not for making money and maybe getting a gold card at the end. This is for all of us voting, getting Mitch McConnell out of office.
Multi-level voting, right? No one gets a pink Cadillac at the end, though, unfortunately.
No.
Although, maybe I would give Trump a pink Cadillac as a consolation prize to get him out. I would absolutely, whatever it takes.
Gets him out.
Mitch, I don't know. He's set. I think he actually is legitimately a millionaire. All we know is that Trump is legitimately like $400 million in debt. So All right, so we're moving on to our next segment. I think we're saying goodbye to Kimberly. I think she's moved on. Thank her very much for being with us. But now we're going to Doug Price, who each and every week, without clockwork, it's amazing. The guy does more homework, really, than anyone else on the Mitch McConnell Retirement Committee, because each and every week he's doing the research to show us what's going on with Mitch's money. So, Doug, what's going on with Mitch's money?
I would certainly be in favor of allowing states to use the bankruptcy route.
Okay, as a lot of you all probably know, if you've watched this in the past, I have a problem at my house with internet connectivity. And so sometimes in the early shows when I was talking, I'd be like, the noise would be coming and going. So tonight I'm able to be here. And by the way, no thanks to Mitch for my internet connectivity. I just want to read you something that my wife sent me. She watched the debate, and she said, well, Amy McGrath just kicked Mitch McConnell's, and in the spirit of the campaign, I want to say I'm Doug Price and I approve this message. First, I want to make a statement about the Mitch McConnell Retirement Committee. I joined this committee when the committee was formed several months ago. We are a dedicated group of volunteers who work with thousands of other people who are committed to effect change. The people on this committee are amazing, and I appreciate their hard work and the work of those who have helped us along the way. Tonight's Following Mitch's Money will look at the following items: fundraising, judicial appointments, and the election. Open Secrets is a go-to place to find out most everything about the financial aspects of elections. If you're looking to get lost for hours on end, being fascinated by all the intricacies of money and politics and walking away with disgust, then Google it. Open Secrets reports that during this election cycle, there will be over $11 billion spent. They estimate the total in 2016 was $6.5 billion. Currently, Mitch has taken in over $37 million, and I would not be surprised if that amount doubles or triples, including dark money and or PACs that work for the benefit of Mitch. Plus, these totals are only through June 2020. We may not agree on candidates, but surely we can all agree there is too much money in politics. Mitch craves this money and uses it to create power. As I've said before, this is circular. Give me money and I will have more power, which allows more money to be given to me, creating more power. Here are some examples from this election cycle. Contributions from NORPAC of $168,000, UPS $90,000, KKNR $80,000, Apollo Global Management $90,000. Mitch has received total contributions over $500,000 from many states, including California, Texas, Arizona, Tennessee, Florida, and Kentucky. 9% of his funds have come from Kentucky, his constituents, I guess you would say, and the other 91% from out of state. The average 2020 Senate campaign is approximately $4 million, and Mitch's fundraisings may well be over $70 million. Mitch has used his ability to generate donations to take over the Senate and effectively control whatever legislation is considered, including the appointment of judges. His current passion is a vote to approve Amy Coney Barrett to replace the recently deceased Ruth Bader Ginsburg. You may remember that Justice Ginsburg made it known that, and this is a quote, "My most fervent wish is that I will not be replaced until a new president is installed." Mitch offered condolences upon her death via a tweet and stated in the tweet that he would fill this vacancy prior to the election. Based on current conditions, I believe Mitch is genuinely concerned that President Trump is going to be defeated. He is concerned the Senate may flip and he may lose his election. I call that the trifecta: If all of this happens, then his swan song will be that he has appointed conservative judges to all federal courts to make the laws of the United States of America more conservative. According to one source, conservatives make up approximately 37% of the American population, and moderates and liberals make up 59%. Lastly, all of us must vote this coming November 3rd, 2020. Our future depends upon everyone expressing their opinion in the voting booth. Expressing our views on social media does not affect change, and there is no question we need change. Please vote to ditch Mitch on November 3rd, 2020.
Take your money and go. 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 Take your money and go.
This partisan impeachment will end today.
What? You're still watching? What's wrong with you? No, we love you. We love you. Thank you so much. And thank you so much, Doug. It's a rare pleasure for this live following Mitch's money. So, hey, everybody, we have got just 22 days left to win this thing in retirement to save our democracy. Make sure to take action every day. And here's what your week could look like. Well, today, of course, you watch and listen to Moscow Mitch Monday. And you can also follow us on Facebook and invite 20 friends who want to hashtag ditch Mitch too. We've now topped 2,100 likes, and Kimberly has challenged all y'all to get us up to 3,300 likes. Can you help invite your friends right now? Would you? Thanks. Tomorrow, well, how's this? Call Mitch's office. And here's a pro tip. Most of the other numbers you can't get through. It's like, no voicemail. But the Bowling Green office, for some weird reason, often you're able to get through. So here's the number to Mitch McConnell's Bowling Green office. 270-781-1673. That's 270-781-1673. And just tell them how much you dislike the fact that he's trying to push Amy Conant Bryant through to the Supreme Court. Wednesday. How's this? How's about joining 5K for KY? Start making your list of 10, 20, 30 maybe voters. Folks you can inform and persuade to make your voice heard. We'll plug folks into the Empower platform. You heard us talking about that a little bit earlier, and help share updates and engagement strategies. And here is also a URL you can use to check things out. It's bit.ly, bit.ly/MMRC-GOTV. bit.ly/MMRC-GOTV. Okay, so that takes us all the way to Thursday. Progressives for Josh. We're going to be having another phone calling session for Josh Hicks, who's running for Congress here in the 6th District. That includes the cities of Lexington and Frankfurt, amongst others. And we love him. He's just a great guy. Maybe you were lucky enough to see him debate Andy Barr last week, but it's not just that he thinks on his feet, right? Because there's a lot of politicians who are that way, and that's a great quality. But he's just like righteous. And he comes at this from like the point of view of a guy who has been a freaking Marine, has been a freaking cop, is now a lawyer. He's seen it all. He's done it all. He knows it all. How's about that? So we are going to be doing phone calling for Josh Hicks, this wonderful treasure of the 6th District, to try to push him over the finish line. So come to our webpage, facebook.com/MMRC 2020, and we'll help hook you up with that effort as well. Friday, we've got calls for Amy McGrath. We all love Amy McGrath. And I have no idea how that's going to happen, except that I do know we have this great Facebook page, facebook.com/MMRC 2020. And that's kind of like our central repository. We also have a nice website called retirementformitch.com, but Facebook's kind of like the jump and join. It's got all the stuff. So if you go there, you're bound to find the stuff that we're hoping you'll find. And that brings us all the way to Saturday. It's Save SCOTUS Saturday. Please join us in a protest near Mitch's Lexington office. Will Mitch be there? Who knows? Only one way to find out. Come join us. That's from 3 to 4:30 at Harrodsburg Road and Corporate Drive off New Circle. Lots of fun every week. Sometimes I'll put on the old Grim Reaper outfit. Thanks, Deb. And pick up a Amy Yard sign. Hold up a Ditch Mitch banner for a while and meet other committee members. We're actually nice people, and we will keep you safe because we will all have our masks on, as will you, and we'll keep socially safe distances. And I don't know if you've seen some of the footage here tonight, but we are definitely we're trying to live up to it. We're all safe distances away from one another, wearing masks whenever possible, and trying to be thoughtful for one another. Here is a URL for that, by the way. Facebook.com/events/ are you kidding? I'm not going to read this. Just go to Facebook.com MMRC 2020. You'll figure it out. Oh my goodness. Really? I'm supposed to read this stuff? Who writes this stuff anyway? Sunday, we have lit dropping for the People's Campaign. So we started doing this a couple weeks ago. This is really great. So the People's Campaign, they've got it all figured out, man. They've got all these great brochures to educate voters why Mitch McConnell is just evil for the Commonwealth. But what they need is people like you and me with 2 feet, 2 good arms, and the ability to go from door to door just to put these pamphlets in the doors, not in the mailbox. That's illegal. Do not put these pamphlets in the mailbox. But you can put them in the crease between the doors, or maybe you can fold it in half and put it underneath the handle. There's all kinds of great techniques, which you will learn when you come join us this upcoming Sunday. I'm not quite sure which city we'll be in, but once again, Facebook.com/MMRC 2020, and you will find out all about it. Woo! What a week. What did we miss? What are you doing this week? How are you spending the other 6 days in action? Throw it in our comments section, or you can put it on Twitter. And next Monday, we've got more exciting announcements for Moscow Mitch Monday, which are not on here, but it'll be awesome. The one thing that will be different, though, and that you're very privileged right now, is that we will not be, unfortunately, live from Loudon House. So that makes it kind of special. And, this has been a really wonderful, I don't know if we want to just share last thoughts or anything, but this has been so much fun and weirdness, and oh my God, people, get your butts over here to Loudon House in Lexington, because Ken Cravens has this amazing energy, and he calls it activist art, and you'll see why when you come here and see it for your own self, because it's just got I think the term is chi, energy that just kind of flows through it all, and it will flow through you when you stand here yourself and see it with your own eyes. And I think that's just about it. Oh, except that I do want to thank, speaking of the artist himself, I want to thank Ken Cravens. I wish I could turn the camera on you, Ken, but that's, there he is. There's the hand. Yes. Oh, a rare sighting of the animal in the wild. Ken Cravens, folks, and each and every week, Ken and CouchFireMedia.com brings us this show and does amazing production. And I did want to say, I was telling him earlier that he reminds me of a DJ, because during during the debate, Ken was in real time throwing up all these graphics that had everything to do with whatever those guys were talking about. And it just blows my mind that Ken is able to do this so effectively, so quickly, and just bring the power. And again, chi, like I said, he's got the chi in the art, and he's got the chi in the video production. So his activist art show here at Loudon House is called American Exceptionalism, Degenerate Counterculture, and the 100 Seconds Until Midnight. It'll be live all of the rest of this month at the Lexington Art League. Yes, there. Look at that. Woo! Lexington, a little bit of chi for you. Lexington Arts League at the Loudon House. Ken has a website for his own art. It's called all-lowercase-letters.com. That's literally the phrase, all-lowercase-letters.com. And you can also find him on Facebook at @obliquity of the ecliptic. And I'm not even going to spell that for you, but if you go to his all-lowercase-letters.com site, I have a feeling there will be a link to his Facebook page. The show that we've been seeing here is mixed media, so there's digital art, there's physical art. It features activism, of course, dissent of local, regional, and national political agendas and concepts. And it was created, why? For one reason only, to sublimate anxiety, fear, lies, hate, and anger since and before Trump. And of course, Mitch McConnell, or the man we love to hate, makes several pointed cameos as well. And lastly, if you want to help us keep going, a little bit of cash goes a long way. You can help us with a donation at secure.actblue.com/donate/MMRC.2020. Let me repeat that. secure.actblue.com/donate/MMRC2020. And thank you all so much. Any closing words for my wonderful co-hosts here?
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. So excited to watch that debate and be able to respond to it in real time and then roll on into the show. And I think there was a chance that maybe I cut Kimberly off early. She told me when she needed to leave, and so I was listening to that. Anyway, I did want to say thank you so much, Kimberly, Cecil Jones, for your support and your work on this stuff. Thanks, Doug, in real life, right here, not pre-recorded. Pretty awesome. And of course, thanks to our social media chair there in the back, Annabelle Nagel, who does a fantastic job helping to keep everyone engaged and informed. And of course, as I mentioned, as Nate mentioned, Ken Howell from Couchfire Media does fantastic work each and every week. And go, leave, turn it off, go do something else, get outside. Take a walk. But yeah, we need to break this all down. And there's a lot of stuff to do because Ken built an entire studio here in this art gallery, which is phenomenal and impressive. And now we've got to coil up a lot of cables in exactly the right way so they don't remember the wrong thing you've done. I don't know. But yeah, have a great night, folks.
Mitch, please.